Hey there, mama. If you want to raise empowered kids who actually listen while parenting biblically, you're in the right place. Not only does this podcast help you strengthen their spiritual gifts and walk in purpose at a young age, but it also teaches you how to parent with intention. Welcome to the Generation on a Mission podcast, where we focus on fostering our children's leadership skills so they can become world changers. Hi, I'm Michelle Schaaf, former classroom educator turned parent educator, blogger, and podcaster, all while changing dirty diapers, drinking lukewarm coffee, and leaning on Jesus. Grab your headphones, whip out the Tata, and start feeding your baby. We've got some learning to do. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Generation on a Mission, episode 20. I can hardly believe it. Plus, we've hit 1,000 downloads, which is just incredible. So I just thank you so much for all your support as we trek through this parenting journey together. Oh my gosh, parenting can just be so difficult at times. Do you agree? Yes, I think so. Especially with toddlers. I'm telling you, it's like 1 minute everything is fine and the next they are raging mad over the fact that you have to wipe their face because there's food on it and they don't want that food to be off their face. But then, they turn around and make you laugh by asking you if you want to race walk with them around the pretend bases so you don't go potty in your pants because you gave birth to 2 babies. Life is funny. So it's definitely a roller coaster. Anyway, this week I was going back and forth with topics and I was having a really hard time narrowing it down, actually. We've hit some low points in our house this week, and there was even a day where I couldn't see an end in sight, and bedtime just couldn't come soon enough, and I'm sure you all know those days. So I thought perhaps we could all use a reminder of how important it is to show love first before you go down a rabbit hole of consequences for your toddler, because the behaviors are just taking over and you're having a hard time finding hope, and perhaps you're just a little worried that your toddler won't bounce out of it and that he's going to be like this forever. Nope, not at all. Stop right there with those thoughts. It's probably just a phase or a day. Like I said, it could be just a day. You have to remember that toddlers have these emotions that they just don't know how to express. And there could be some deep emotions that they don't even know exist yet. But they know something's up, and that's enough to warrant a day from down under, if you catch my drift. But please don't lose hope in your parenting, especially if you're remembering to be consistent and persistent through all those tough times. There's hope that your little one is going to be all right, I promise. Just stay at it. And something I think we as parents battle is trying to find that line between giving them too much grace during situations because you don't want to hear the temper tantrum and you want them to be successful, but essentially that can lead to a lack of accountability because you're too soft on them. However, on the flip side, too much discipline and punitive consequences can lead to increased defiant behavior because there's a lost sense of being able to do anything right. And it's just hard to find that balance sometimes as parents, at least on my end. I don't know if you feel the same way. And perhaps that's because every kid is different and they all need different things. And there's so much gray area when it comes to parenting. Or perhaps maybe it's just because we're really trying to just do what's best for our kids and we don't know how to accomplish that because there's no manual, which is such a tough concept as parents. At least I think so. So let's talk about giving your little one grace, but still holding them accountable. How exactly do you find that balance between too much grace and not enough grace? I think grace is still reminding your little one that you love them through their behaviors, offering hugs when they just can't continue to pull it together. And it's also understanding that they have these deep emotions that they don't know how to express and that they are still learning the game of life, boundaries and everything. It's offering forgiveness when they apologize for wronging you, no matter how many times they do it. I think it's also reminding them over and over again that there are other strategies they can use to help them work through situations. I think it's constantly reminding them that you're here to help them through these hard times, but at times there are still consequences for their actions and there has to be that accountability piece. I think it's also knowing when to offer consequences and knowing when to offer encouragement that they're able to do things the right way. It's giving them chances to try again, but it's knowing that if they continue to push that line, that there's going to be a lesson there, which may be through a natural consequence or one that's enforced by you. And it's also understanding that you're not always trying to prove a point in your parenting, and that's tough because sometimes you really want to drive the point home, but it's being empathetic and understanding and helping them find ways to overcome those situations and those extreme emotions and learn from their mistakes, which means there has to be an accountability piece. So I think that grace is not never holding them accountable. It's not just letting them off the hook because kids will be kids and they have their moments. Yes, kids do need to be kids, but I am a firm believer in accountability, and that can happen through a variety of ways, whether through life lessons, aka natural consequences, or through consequences that you enforced, or perhaps through a teachable moment, or simply making them right their wrongs. I think parenting with grace is also not leading them down a constant string of consequences when they are just having a rough day or a rough few moments. We all have those days. It's letting them know that they are having a rough day, but you're choosing to give them time, gentle reminders, and positive encouragement. However, if it calls for it, then you will get stern, provide consequences, and hold them accountable because you love them and you want to help them learn through their mistakes. You want them to accomplish the expected task on their own, and you want to give them chances to try to do that. But if they can't make that choice on their own, that's when you think about implementing consequences that are effective. And that's important. The effective piece is important. However, I think that offering grace is also knowing when natural consequences are enough and when to use moments as teachable moments instead of just instilling consequences to prove a point. It's knowing which consequences are appropriate for the offense and not guilting them when they don't learn their lesson, which is very challenging sometimes because you really want to drive the point home. It's being persistent with providing them with the things they need to be successful as opposed to proving that point that you're trying to make. It's all about finding ways to reach them so that they feel encouraged, successful, and understand how valuable they are to the world when they make great choices and use their big hearts and kind hands. So where's that balance when you're in the heat of the moment and it's just one of those days? Like those days where it's just endless screams because he's trying to push limits with not following directions and he's trying to see how far he can push you before you lose your patience. How do you know when to offer grace and when to offer consequences? Because sometimes our kiddos need that grace, but sometimes consequences need to be enforced too, because too much grace is not effective either. I think that finding that balance can be accomplished, but it's not an easy or quick feat at times, especially during those difficult moments or days. It can be accomplished by taking a step back and really dissecting the situation though. You have to take a look at what is effective for your toddler, what's getting through to him, and what's simply escalating the situation, but it's not effective. And that can be difficult to do. And perhaps it's difficult because you have all those unpleasant emotions inside of you as the parent because you're frustrated that your toddler is going down this path and just choosing to not make the right choices you know he knows how to make. But there's a reason behind it too. And I think you have to look at how you're handling the situation as the adult and not just focus on how your kiddo is behaving, but it's how you address those behaviors as well. So how exactly do you dissect the situation? How do you break it down and look at it from a different perspective or lens? I'm here to say it doesn't always happen in the heat of the moment. By far, it does not happen in the heat of the moment, so don't expect that, like when the behaviors are happening. It does take reflection though. It takes trial and error, and sometimes it takes getting through those difficult moments, just handle it as is, knowing that you're just trying to make it through, and then analyzing how to move forward next time, and thinking about where you can make a change the next time that situation happens. And you know, if I'm being honest, sometimes I get caught up in the situation myself, and I know I don't handle it in the best ways because they take you for a shock sometimes when I'm walking through those trying moments with my toddler. And I think that happens as parents, and that's okay. But personally, in my opinion, I'm just not okay with that happening every time for my kiddo and my parenting. I could choose to sit and sulk about how nothing I'm doing is working and it's just a lost cause, or I could cross my fingers and hope for the best. I personally just don't like that complacency. So instead what I do is I've learned how to break apart the situation and look at it from like a third person omniscient perspective of what my toddler was doing and how I responded and how he responded to my response and whether or not it was effective. If it wasn't effective, I then proactively think about a specific strategy I can use next time when we get to that situation again. Or I think about where I went wrong in the discipline part of it and move forward differently when it happens again. And it's not always easy to do that, but I think that's the only way I'll move forward in knowing how exactly to reach my toddler and figure out what works. And then I use the information I gain to better my discipline each time. If I know that yelling at him is a trigger, why would I keep doing it when I know there are other ways to help him feel successful and still accomplish his task? On the flip side of that, if I know he tries to distract his way out of every situation where he has to clean up his toys because that's not something he enjoys doing, and then he acts out when he has to do it, then I need to find a way to help him get the task done when the proactive strategies aren't working. And the endless string of consequences aren't effective either. What do you do then, That's where the balance comes into play. He will get a consequence and will continue to be held accountable if the task doesn't get done, or if he uses aggression to solve the problem. But I'm also here to help him find that success on his own and not on my own accord. But I think as parents, we need to reflect on when to stop giving consequences, because at some point, the consequences, if they are ongoing and prolonged, they just become ineffective. We need to learn strategies on how to reach our toddlers when nothing else is working, whether that be through conversations, during social skills building activities, or reading books to bridge those connections, or giving them chances to try again, or even time to spend by themselves in their rooms. We need to remember that they need chances to voice their frustrations, but we need to figure out ways to teach them how to do that appropriately. Finding that balance takes remembering that space is okay and not trying to drive home the point in the heat of the moment. It's okay to take space and time to recoup and gather thoughts and emotions, and then communicate with them after the situation is over and everyone is all calm, cool, and collected. So with that being said, here's a little formula I came up with, and perhaps yours is different. And I'd love to know your thoughts and what works for you and your littles in your house. But this is what I've come to find to be successful in teaching and in parenting small humans, and even bigger humans as well. But this formula goes as is. Undesired behaviors plus too much grace equals uncontrolled behaviors, as in you can't ever get them to listen. Undesired behaviors plus too many consequences equals defiant behaviors, as in they are going above and beyond to do things that they know will get a rise out of you because they don't have hope that they can do anything right. So they're just going to keep doing things wrong. Undesired behaviors plus grace and consequences equals effective discipline. That's when you're going to start seeing success. I'm curious, do you find this to be accurate in your home, or have you found other successes? I'd love to hear from you. And I also think that there are other elements of parenting that you can add into these formulas, like communication and motivation and praise and other things of that nature. But I thought that this was a basic starting point, so I wanted to share it. And maybe somewhere down the line I'll add in more, but that'll be for a different episode. So anyway, this week I think we should all take some time to take a step back and look at how we handle our parenting from a third-person omniscient perspective. Look at every side, yours and your toddlers, and see where you can make a change. Are you too lenient and graceful in your parenting to where your kids aren't listening to you and there's no control? Or are you too punitive where you have too much pushback from your kids? Or have you found that perfect balance of grace and accountability? And if there is a change that you think you need to make, what change are you going to make? I'd love to hear from you, and I'd love to know what makes you feel like you're successful in reaching your kids with discipline, finding that balance between grace and consequences. What works for you? Please share that with me. I would love to know. And that is all from me. I hope you will have a fabulous week. Thanks for sticking out with me for 20 episodes. I can't wait for 20 more and even more beyond that. I will see you next time. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Real quick before you go, if today's episode made you laugh, learn, or love your littles a little more, please head on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave a written review for the Generation on a Mission podcast. If you're needing simple ideas to boost learning for your kiddo, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Michelle Schauf, SCHAUF, or join our Facebook page at Generation on a Mission. See you next time.